Hey guys, what's going on? Tats Deej here. This morning when I woke up, like so many people did, kind of woke up to some very sad news. Childhood inspiration of mine had passed away late sometime Tuesday. Jim Hellwig, known to millions of wrestling fans in the 80s and the 90s as the Ultimate Warrior. I can't truly put into words how the Ultimate Warrior inspired me as a kid. As a child growing up in the 80s, you watched wrestling. It's what you did. It was big in my household, and it was big in the household of most of the kids that I grew up with. And the Ultimate Warrior every week was part of that life and part of that childhood. And he was like a living, breathing superhero just come to life right there on the TV every week. And, you know, he made you feel what he was doing, and he had such a presence and such a character in such a way that a lot of guys weren't doing. I mean, wrestling in the 80s was very big for big characters. Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and Andre the Giant, these larger than life. And the Ultimate Warrior was a part of that, but there was something about him that just was, for me, different. And, you know, all my friends wanted to be Hulk Hogan, and I wanted to be the Ultimate Warrior. He had a fantastic build. He had a fantastic persona. Just the music hit, and you knew when that guy hit the ring, somebody was getting their ass beat, man, and you were going to get your money's worth, even if he was only out there for a minute. In the 90s, I got into pro wrestling. I was only in it for about a year. I wasn't in for very long, and the Ultimate Warrior was one of my inspirations for wanting to get into the wrestling business. You know, as a kid, people would ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a wrestler. You know, and I want to be like the Ultimate Warrior. And he wasn't my inspiration in the sense of his technical abilities, because I don't think there's anybody out there that'll argue that he was not the greatest technical wrestler to ever set foot in the ring. But what he sold was the belief, you know, in the character, in him. You believed when he hit the ring, man, he was go, and he was bam, and he was going to take it home, and you were going to go, and you were going to go bananas and love every minute of it, and you did. And it didn't matter how good or not good he was in the ring. And for me, the other thing was, I've always wanted to entertain. I did drama in high school. Like I said, I did later on, I did the wrestling, and I always wanted to entertain. And to be a guy who could take a crowd of 60,000 people and hold them right there in the palm of his hand and just make them feel whatever he wanted to feel, whether it was excitement, whether it was worry, whether it was, you know, oh my God, he might actually lose, and then he just snatches it out of the, you know, and just snatches it out of thin air and wins the match. And that for me was what I wanted to be as a pro wrestler. The ability to look out in that crowd and know that everybody out there paid to see me, and that I was giving them what they paid to see. And the Ultimate Warrior did that. You know, I got the opportunity to see him live a couple of times, enjoyed the hell out of it. So for me, he really inspired that aspect of my life when I went into pro wrestling. You know, I wanted to be a very good technical wrestler, but I also wanted to be somebody who could grab that crowd and hold on to them for 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long you were out there. And when you left that night, they were speaking your name to their friends. That's the guy I wanted to be, because to me, that's who the Ultimate Warrior was, and that's what he was for me in wrestling. Later on, like I said, he got out of the business. He wasn't in the business for as long as I would have hoped. I think the biggest chunk of the better part of his career was from, I think, 86 to 96, about 10 years. He got out of the business, and there's a lot of people that will probably argue for what he got out of the business, he didn't give enough back. And, you know, maybe to a small degree after he disappeared, you know, I had a little bit of, you know, animosity about that, and I kind of felt like he should have stuck around longer. And I felt like he had something more to give the wrestling industry and the up-and-coming superstars than what he did. But I discovered him later on, strangely enough, on YouTube. He had a YouTube channel. I don't think a whole lot of people knew that. I think, you know, he had a following, not as much as he probably should have or could have. He was a vlogger doing what I'm doing now and doing what some of you do, and he really wasn't half bad. You know, he talked about stuff going on in his life, and he talked about the business a little bit, and he talked about the past of the business, and he talked about his family, and he talked about what he had been doing, and more importantly, and this is the key, he did a lot of inspirational videos, trying to get people to put their best foot forward and, you know, eat correctly and exercise and try to take, you know, physical and better care of yourselves mentally. And that's when it clicked with me. He was still giving back just giving back differently. And that's when it kind of registered with me. His time had come in the wrestling industry. It had gone, and he knew, although he did little appearances here and there, and he did do 1 or 2 matches after he had pretty much hung it up, I think he knew, and I think he was smart enough to know that the better days were behind him, and he had to give back to the world in a different way. And he did that on YouTube. And if you haven't checked it out, if I don't know if the channel's still active or not, I'll post a link down below, and you can go check it out. If you were a fan, I think you'll love it. He's a bit polarizing. He's maybe a little bit controversial in some of the things that he has to say, but, I think the world could use that here or there. The neat thing about his videos were, there were times when the guy was doing his videos on a fucking iPhone. Now think about that for a minute. This is the Ultimate Warrior, who probably had access to all kinds of crap. I mean, you look at me, here I am trying to better my video quality, adding green screen, lighting, and trying to improve the sound quality, and this guy was doing videos on an iPhone, which to me is part of the message. Take what little you have and try and make something more out of it. And I think that really was an analogy for his entire career. He wasn't the most technically gifted guy in the ring, but he made himself a huge superstar. And I'm very proud to say that I was part of that. And I don't mark out to too many celebrities. If I was ever to meet a few, it would be like, okay, cool, that's a celebrity. I think the one I would have a hard time speaking to, had I ever gotten the opportunity to meet him, would have been the Ultimate Warrior, because of the way he inspired me as a child, and then later on, the way he inspired me as an adult. So as best I can, Ultimate Warrior, thank you. Another one of the greats that was gone way too soon. Always believe. And I'm out.